Are we good? All right. Everybody rise to the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. The Board of Education regular meeting for October 15th. Mr. Summers, could I get attendance?
Yep, President Dr. Reese,
Present.
Vice President McDonough,
Here.
Secretary Summers is here, Treasury Whitney, here, and Trustee Schultz,
Here.
Trustee Atchison,
Here.
Trustee Alford, here.
Great. Thank you. Any changes to the board agenda? I have none. Everyone else does? Item number 3, schedule public comment. I did not receive any. Did you, Kelly or Tanya?
I did not, but do we have a change in the agenda? Did we have a change?
Oh, we'll just vote it out. Yeah. Thank you. All right, item number 4 is consent agenda. We have the minutes of the September 24th, 2024 meeting, minutes of the September 24th closed session, and human resources updates, all included in the packet. James, for the read.
Yep. Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have support? Ann? Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Item number 5, superintendent update. This is the big one, Tanya.
Yo,
Please let
yeah.
us know how you...
Okay, good evening, everyone. Aaron, if you want to turn that on. Part of it, I'll do the superintendent activities. This is actually a 4-part presentation. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to be here last time due to illness. So 2 of these would have been done at the last meeting, so we're putting them together. So I ask for your patience as I go through these. So there's actually 4, so I'll go over some superintendent activities, things that have been happening around the district, very fun stuff. I'll talk about the school quality survey outcome. We got that back in June, and we'll look at some of the results of that and compare them to the previous year and see how we're doing. I'll share the 60-day, which was the end of September, was my 60-day transition, the end of that. So I did the 30-day in August, did a presentation. We'll do the 60-day today, and I'll talk about the upcoming 90 days transition. And then I'll share my draft superintendent goals. If when you came in you didn't pick up a copy, I do have a copy of the draft goals. If you want to grab those so you have them when I'm talking about the goals. So we'll jump right into superintendent activities. It's been busy. So first things first, I really want to thank Mike Strong, who's in the audience, and his entire transportation team. They set up a ride-along, and the purpose of the ride-along is I really wanted to have the opportunity to ride on a bus that goes to some of our more challenging bus locations. And so we went out into Leonard. That's where bus driver Rod Wright, that's his route. And ultimately, I wanted to really have a good understanding of what those roads would look like during inclement weather. So Rod did an amazing job. He's probably one of the most patient people I've ever met in my life. He was phenomenal. And his interactions with students was just incredibly positive. It was a wonderful 3 hours. I just want to emphasize 3 hours. And his team, just the transportation team. So Mike, thank you for setting that up. I appreciate it. So here was me getting on the bus. That's with our middle schoolers and our high schoolers. That was about 30 minutes in. And then towards the end, when we picked up our elementary school, so about 2 hours, 2.5 hours in, that was me. So that was, and again, getting a chance to see Rod in action, just the most patient person. I don't know how he does it. He is just phenomenal. I learned a lot. Some of these roads were just unbelievable. Just so, for example, this is Oakwood Road. Doesn't look too challenging. One of my colleagues sent me what this looks like in winter. just a sheet of ice. And then when we went over, when Rod, we were just going in all the back roads, up and down and over. This was one of the roads, this is Army Road that we crossed, and it's actually in between two bodies of water. And so the wind and the moisture, according to Rod, turns this into a solid sheet of ice. And he has to cross this multiple times on his route. So I bring that up to say there are a lot of factors that come into play when having to call for inclement weather. The number one thing that has to come to mind is the safety of all of our students. And these dirt roads, these back roads, we do have to be mindful that they can become extremely dangerous. I never ever want to put a student in an unsafe situation. So I just wanted to be preemptive when the weather is nice right now and we're looking out there, it's so pretty. When the weather does turn bad and when I do have to make those decisions, I just wanted to put it out there ahead of time that there are many factors that come into play when having to make those decisions. And number one is our student safety. So that was very informative. So again, thanks to Rod, thanks to Mike, thanks to the team. It was 3 hours of pure delight. I was very sore afterwards. I hadn't ridden on a school bus for 3 hours in a long time. I didn't realize how wonderful they were. We also started our learning walks. So Anita Collins and I have been going out to the schools and doing learning walks. Now, learning walks are different than classroom observations. So classroom observations, you're looking at one class, you're looking for specific things to give feedback on. Learning walks is something that you're going to multiple classrooms and you're looking for patterns. So things that we're looking for when we're doing learning walks, we're looking for curriculum usage across the board. How is the written curriculum being seen in the taught curriculum? Some of the PBIS routines, I had an awesome opportunity at the beginning of the year watching our teachers teach the students the PBIS routines. So seeing how those were being reinforced in the classrooms, the instructional focus of the school and how that was being lifted up in each classroom, how the student-to-student interactions were, and finally teacher-to-student interactions, what those look like. And again, we're looking for themes, we're looking for patterns. We're essentially going to be utilizing this, this structure to support learning of our leaders, where they're having an opportunity to visit other schools. And the leader will be asking for feedback about something specific that's important to them, that's part of their improvement plan, what are they seeing. It's a great opportunity to get peer-to-peer feedback. It's low threat as far as, you know, intimidation and being nervous. It's like, hey, I could really benefit from this type of feedback. Go out and see what you see and come back and give me some feedback. So we're working on what those might look like just by Anita and I going out. It's actually been really fun. We had a good time. Girls golf, they finished third in the OAA league. So I was able to attend their part of their championship day. Coach Gretchen was just phenomenal. She drives like a maniac on her golf cart, which I had a lot of appreciation for. It was a gorgeous day. The girls were just amazing. I got a chance to meet each of them. They were just so pleasant and knowledgeable and patient. They actually won the sportsmanship award, which as a coach, that's always an honor because, you know, our success, our you know, sometimes our failures, that comes and goes, but who they are as human beings always is the most significant aspect of your coaching, right? So it's really a proud moment for Gretchen and the team. And then, of course, we have somebody going to state. So we have Katie Pill headed to state. So we wish her the absolute best of luck. And then we have, we had Peak Out. Was this last week? 2 weeks ago. Someone did not get the memo. It was Peak Out Day. It was great. We actually ended up winning that game, I think at the very last, like 5 minutes. So, what's that? 40 seconds. 40 seconds, sorry. It was exciting. It was just a great evening. It was just really, really great. So, lots of fun. And of course, the high school has homecoming. We have homecoming parade on Friday, homecoming game on Friday, and then the dance on Saturday. So looking forward to that. And congratulations to our varsity football team and coaches winning the OAA Red League Championship. So that was really exciting. Lots of very positive things, lots of great things going on. So we're very proud of our students and our staff. I'm actually going to get up now and do this because it's just awkward presenting down here. So give me a moment. Okay, as I mentioned, this is the school quality grant, or school quality survey. This is hyperlinked in the presentation, but you can also find the data on our homepage. This survey was given last April, and we got the results in June. Let's see. The sampling that we have, parents and guardians, we had about 9% respondents, percentage respondents. That is not awesome. We typically want 20% or higher. So we're gonna wanna think about some ways in which we might get a higher response rate. So what that calls into question is the validity, just because of the number. I think we sent out about 12,000 invitations for the survey, and we got 1,081, so we'll have to think through how we might improve that. The staff, 48% was pretty good, and students, 25%. I would also like that to go higher. You know, typically we have a captive audience when it comes to kids, so, you know, figuring out how to get that number a little bit higher would be, I think, make the responses stronger. When you look at across the board where the parents were from, who responded, it was a nice array of schools being represented, almost all schools being represented. Same thing with staff. Some of them have higher numbers because they have a higher student population, so I don't want it to look as if, you know, we didn't have as many in certain schools. The numbers, the percentage of students are different. And then student responses, again, we only had our secondary students respond to this survey. So this is the spread of the responses from the different schools. So what I did, when you click on the actual survey itself, there is a plethora of graphs. It's a little overwhelming when you look at it. And they look at it mostly in discrete units. So here is some student data, here is some staff data, here is some parent data. They do have some that come together, and when you read the overall guidelines for the survey, it talks about typical responses you will see. Staff responses be the highest, and then the parents, and then the students as far as percentage. What was interesting to me is looking at the graphs is where you saw discrepancies in that, right? Where you had parents higher than staff, or you had parents really high, staffs and students lower. So those are just some interesting anomalies to think about. But what was important to me was across the board, when we take staff, students, and parents, what are some key takeaways that we can consider when we think about strengthening our climate and culture in our schools? And so these were across the board, some findings that the report shares. So pretty much high percentage, you know, students can sometimes be the tough nut to crack when it goes to pleasing them. So most of their responses are typically moderate to low. But most of them rated the overall quality of their school as excellent or good, so that's positive. Respectful places with 80% of parents, 82% of staff members, and 77% of students strongly agreeing that families and staff are respectful to one another, so that's a really great observation. 74% of parents and guardians, 85% of staff, and 66% of students strongly agreed that staff members and students treat each other with respect. And with our PBIS program and our SEL program, this is something that's really important to us. So it demonstrates a significant hope that we are continuing to engage in those positive interactions. Then with 59% of parents, 74% of staff, and 40% of students strongly agreed that teachers successfully show students how lessons relate to life outside of school. I'm going to talk a little bit about this when I compare the 2 years, the previous year to this year. This is a really challenging thing to do. I mean, I'm sure you've been in classes and you're like, how am I ever going to use this in life, right? And as a young person, it's hard to see those connections. Most of us here now can think about those learning experiences, and you have those aha moments. You're like, oh, that's what they were trying to teach me, okay? So I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get to that comparison. And then I appreciated this response because obviously when it comes from an academic standpoint, we want students to have as much support as possible. And so 71% of parents, 83% of staff, and 74% of students said that they could get the support they needed for academics. So that's huge. That's something that many schools struggle with just because of time and resources. They're not able to get students as much additional support as they might like. So this was very positive. We also have building PDs for staff. PD can be challenging sometimes. You always want it to align with staff needs. And having been a PD practitioner for a long period of time, sometimes I nailed it and sometimes I didn't. So it was really positive to see that most of them, 70%, strongly agreed that it gave them knowledge or skills they could use in their job. That was really positive. That's a hard number to get, I can tell you that right now, just having surveys of my own that I've put out there. 64% agreed or strongly agreed that activities were effective, and 65% agreed or strongly agreed that they actually used those ideas in the classroom. And the reason why that's important is that when you have professional development, if a teacher does not use that with the new learning within 3 days, it's highly unlikely that that learning is going to stick. So for them to say, yes, I used it, is really positive, especially at 65%. That's pretty incredible. And then students having positive feelings. And this was really cool too. It resonates on how much their families support them and want them to do well in school, because the kids are saying 94% said their family really wants them to do well in school, 92% said they believe they can do well in school, and 81% said they have support for learning at home. Really, really positive, right? The support that kids have, that's huge. So I appreciate that. And then this is a key one too, because this speaks to our SEL support and our PBIS. Sense of belonging is huge when it comes to student success. And for 74% of students to say that they belong, they feel like they belong at school, that's huge. And just as a comparison, some of the locations that I've been, it's been as low as 30%, 40%. So 74% is amazing. And 71% said they feel safe at school. So that's really cool too, right? So some very positive takeaways. 65% of students said their schools are, students in their schools are friendly and treat them with respect. So here are some challenges, right? So 85% of parents and staff members and 78% of students strongly agreed that students are challenged by their schoolwork. However, fewer participants said that teachers readily listen to and accept student ideas and suggestions about classwork, with only 55% of parents, 75% of staff, and 58% of students in agreement, right? So that's coming into class It's talking about the concepts, it's getting the kids to connect the concepts to their lives and have dialogue. We were in a class just the other day and we watched a teacher do this. It was absolutely incredible. The kids had great dialogue. They actually brought us into a dialogue and wanted us to participate in it, so that was really fun. And so getting kids to have an opportunity to take the knowledge and connect it with their own lives is a really powerful instructional process. 90% of parents, 97% of staff, and 88% of students strongly agree that there is a teacher, counselor, or other staff members to go to for help with a school problem. However, fewer participants, 81% of students, 78% said the same about help with a personal problem. So we worked on a program called Trusted Adult, and making sure that every student has a trusted adult to go to. I know that they were working hard on that for this coming school year, so I'll be interested to see if that number goes up. Because obviously if you have a personal problem, whether it be a counselor, I know some of them chose our cafeteria workers, some of them chose our custodians, some of them chose our bus drivers, you know, so to all sorts of people, somebody they're comfortable with, if they're dealing with a personal problem, that they can go to get some support. So hopefully that number will go up. And finally, there was mixed responses, and this was one that really resonated with our administrative team. In August, we had our admin retreat, or ad team retreat. They got their building data and they dug into their building data, and this was one that really kind of stuck with them as far as fairness. Obviously, from a leadership standpoint, you always keep fairness in the front of your mind. And so in this case, we have 74% of parents, 89% of staff members, and 67% of students that strongly agreed that students in their school are treated fairly, regardless of their background. However, only 50% of parents, 65% of staff, and 55% of secondary students said that discipline is enforced fairly. Obviously, that is not what we want. We want a very positive perspective that we're being fair. Some hurdles that we encounter in this situation is that we also have, by law, we have to keep students' information confidential. So if there's a situation where multiple students have an infraction and we are involved with disciplining them, we can't communicate, you know, with each student, like what happened to the other student, what happened, and then of course the kids share, you know, their perspectives, and they're not always aligned with administrative perspectives. So this is a really tricky one. I think we have a lot of really good ideas from administration, because like I said, this was the one they were like, oh, we really need to figure this one out, right? We don't want kids walking around feeling as if, you know, we're targeting them, or, you know, we're not being fair or consistent. And so we had a lot of conversation about this at our ad team retreat. So, excuse me. So this, for each year, so the previous year and for this past year, they have the top highest rank indicators over time. So these are the ones that got the highest percentage across the board. And so I wanted to compare one year to the next and see, are we going up? Are we going down? These are some things, so each of our schools has their data, and in their presentations, I think Clear Lake is next week, they'll have their own climate and culture data, and they'll talk about some of these pieces, but this is district-wide. And here's what I find interesting about this. So we have, let's see. So families informed in 22-23, you had 91% of our parents say, yeah, we're well informed. And then in 23-24, that rose to 94%. So that's pretty awesome, right? Obviously the goal is always 100% because we're perfectionists. So we work really hard on newsletters, social media. We have many of our schools do s'mores. We do school messenger. I think sometimes families are maybe a little bit inundated with messaging, but the goal is that they are well informed. So clearly we're making a mark. Families encouraged to attend. Our parents 90% the previous year and 93% last year. So things again like district communication, parent university, again social media, and all the different ways that we're trying to communicate seems to be having a positive impact. School is safe. As you know, safety is my top priority, so I was very interested to see what this was going to turn out to be. So parents went from 90%, no, this is staff, I apologize. Staff went from 90% to 93%. These were not our top, so these are not actually in the green part of this report, but I was just curious how it compared, so I went and grabbed those data points. And school is safe, parents in the previous year, 76, and students 63, and that rose to 79 and 68. So not huge gains, but incremental gains, which is very positive. These things take time. Some of the things that we felt was helping in this is lots of training, lots and lots of training, lots of systems being implemented, lots of communication. And that also resonated with students here. I was really happy to see this, because one of the things from a school standpoint is you want to know that kids and staff know what to do in a safety situation. Like you don't have to be running around trying to guide them, like they already know. That's why we do all the practices and the drills that we do. And so our students, the question, all students are aware of safety procedures. Students, 78% the previous year said, yeah, agree or strongly agree, and that rose to 81%. So that was really positive. And then what about our staff members? Are all of our staff members aware? And for students to rank teachers that, or staff that, that's pretty impressive. So it went from 82% to 84%. So really, really positive over time. Again, do we want it to be 100%? Absolutely. It's going to take us time. And we continue to implement the systems, the training, the procedures to get that incremental growth and positive trajectory. This slide is the opposite end of the spectrum. So these are the things that we scored lowest in. And the goal for these, the lower the better, right? So we want these numbers, our goal would be that all of these numbers are zero eventually, right? It's the other, we don't want anyone to disagree or strongly disagree about these statements, okay? So the first one, bullying is not tolerated. 23% disagreed or strongly disagreed. And that was our parents. And that dropped to 18%. So that's a 5 percentage point drop. That's really good. That's a very positive thing. So what we thought about as far as mitigating actions, we have anonymous reporting, better systems, we have policies and accessibilities to report, so we make it very easy for families to report if they have any concerns. And so hopefully that is impacting that positive outcome. Again, here's discipline enforced fairly across the board, where parents said 22%, staff 28%, and then last year this dropped to 20%, so that's a 2% drop, so that's a good thing. We went from 28% to 26% for staff. Again, that's a very positive drop. Students, being the tough cookies that they are, nope, they went up. So they're still feeling that discipline is not enforced fairly. Again, that's something that our schools will talk about when they do their presentation on how they're trying to address those situations. And then as I talked about, teachers relating lessons to real life, again, that's a challenge. However, our students were 56% the previous year, and that dropped 5% for this past year. So that's really positive as well. Some of the things that we have in place, career connection, SEL work, social relationships, Learning is a social endeavor, and so having those opportunities to engage in social dialogue often helps students help make those connections. So overall, some very positive outcomes over time. They're not huge, but we're getting there. Sometimes you just take baby steps to get where you need to be, so that's definitely the direction we're going. Now, getting from good to great. So what this question was for our parents, our staff, and our students, what would it take for you to rank us one step higher? What would have to happen in the school district for you to rank us higher? And here's what they said. So for parents to get from good to great, Jim Collins, for anybody who knows that book, Good to Great. Academic rigor. They wanted to see more options for students and more challenging courses, especially at the 9th and 10th grade level. They wanted more college prep opportunities, including test-taking skills and college planning. So we definitely have a lot of those available for our students and are working to improve that. Cultural inclusivity. This has to do with, are our students seeing themselves in the curriculum? Are our students seeing, it's kind of the concept of windows and mirrors. So mirrors, are they seeing themselves in what they're learning? So when you go into class, I went to a science classroom the other day, and the teacher had scientists all around her room, and they were of all different ethnicities, all different races, genders, you name it, it was across the board. So as a student, if I'm sitting there and, I am Muslim and I see that there's a Muslim scientist up on the wall, I've already made a connection. I've already said, hey, people like me can be scientists, right? So these are some of the things as far as inclusivity across the board. Do students see themselves in the curriculum? And does it give them an opportunity to see outside of who they are and make connections to who they are? So that's an important part, and it was really good to see parents lift that up. Parental involvement and communication, clear communication, we know that, we've heard that throughout my 30-day communication and work with community members, as well as the leadership profile, as well as survey feedback. We want more robust communication. So that's from parents, from staff. Again, communication that comes up a lot, and collaboration. And I found this really interesting because they even talked about how they could strengthen their own communication to strengthen their teaching practices. So that was really fun to see. Curriculum professional development, specifically they wanted to see more PD that directly related to their building specific needs. And they felt that it was currently inadequate, so that's definitely something we can lean into. And then resource allocation, better resources for curriculum specialists and adjustments in workload to help teachers manage their responsibilities more effectively. So that's our staff. And then students, you just never know what's going to come from students. Let's see what they have to say. Guidance and support for future planning. That's pretty cool that they lifted that up. That's something that they wanted. They wanted better guidance for planning, especially credit transfer, post-graduation plans. For those of you who have seniors, it is extremely stressful. I worked with seniors for years, and that next step is really intimidating. And so having as much support as possible to help that trajectory, I think, is a great idea, and we can definitely lean into that. Freedom and time, nobody's surprised about this. They do want more freedom in their day. They want more freedom with their class loads and things like that. So I also appreciate the fact they wanted additional time for big assignments. Who doesn't? That's a great idea. I love that. And then desire for structural and schedule changes. Fundamental, they cited examples as a different building in a 4-day week. I'm at least glad they said 4 days and not like 3 or 2. So I appreciate that. And then, so what out of the 3 groups, so what are some themes that we saw getting from good to great? What are some things we can really think about and really lean into to improve? So teaching and learning, the rigor, looking at effective instruction K-12 and where some of the learning walks that we're doing is informing that. That's really helpful. Curriculum with fidelity, so that has to do with here's the written curriculum, here's the taught curriculum, how are they connected, right? How is it being implemented? Analyzing data and looking at trends. We are developing, I'm really excited, I can't wait to see the outcome for this, the instructional playbook, that will be really fun. And ensuring student choice and voice, which is a huge one, because that's how students end up owning their learning. If they have, and we do this at home, right? You want your child to clean the house, and you're like, hey, can you clean the bathroom, or can you clean the kitchen? And they're like, oh, I'm gonna do the bathroom. Either way, they're still cleaning, right? But they had a choice in that, so that changes their perspective, right? Same thing with education. When they have choice in education, they end up owning the process. Of course, you'll have some kids who'll say, neither. Well, tough cookies. You're gonna do it anyways. So post-secondary planning, how we can really lift that up. Intentional work with Zello and educational development plans. That's where students work with support team members to really map out and plan their educational pathway based on their interests, right? And we know that interests change, and so they're very flexible, but it's important that students have an opportunity to talk through some of those things with supportive adults. Leaning into Career Navigator, leveraging CTE programs, as well as additional like OSEC programs, and engaging our youngest learners in career explorations. And so talking to our elementary kids about a variety of careers. So many of them are like, I want to be a police person, I want to be a fire person, I want to be a doctor. All great. There are so many careers that kids can explore. And so really exposing them to a lot of those. Communication is obviously a huge one. We are still working really hard on our communication plan. We want to make sure it's robust. We want to make sure we're able to implement it with fidelity. We get lots of feedback. So we just shared some part of the plan with our ad team today to get their input. It's something that's going to take some time just to make sure it's done accurately, and that we're getting as much feedback as possible. So we're definitely working on finalizing the communication plan. And part of the survey from parents talked about, it was a low percentage that parents felt that their feedback was valued. And part of that is I think we don't communicate effectively to say, hey, we're making this change, and this is why we're making this change. Because this is the feedback that we received from our parents. I think we could do a better job of just articulating that, because we very much value what our parents have to say, and we do want to make sure we are being responsive. So I think if we do a better job of communicating how we're using that feedback, I think there might be a better perception of that. And then finally, inclusivity. We really want to recognize and embrace the diverse background of our students. We do have quite a diverse student population. Across the board, you name it, we have diversity out there. So how do we make sure we're embracing that and making it a part of the classroom, making it a part of the learning? That is really important. And feel that students are represented in what they're learning. So that's a critical aspect. Inclusivity is something you're going to hear a lot of. It's going to get a lot of attention in the state, a lot of attention from lawmakers and all sorts of things, because every child deserves to be represented in their learning. They should know that they're a part, and a very important part, of our world. And so these are some of the things that we are looking at strengthening this year. All right, so I'm going to pause. Pause. Questions about the survey? There's a lot. And if you go to the link that's on the website or linked in there's so much data. I spent so much time, it's like going down in the rabbit hole. It's pretty cool. And I tried to synthesize as much as possible the growth areas. It was a little complicated to pull some of that stuff out. And as I said, the schools will present this data, their own data. I'll be interested to see how their individual data compares to this and how their themes compare.
Any questions? Mike? Alder?
I'm just curious, is there a thought on validity for local or national relevance? Like where are we locally and nationally in regards to the survey? Is that even done on a broad scope for us to have that data to look
I'd
at?
have to look. I know with some, so I've used Panorama data, and that's what they do. They compare you locally, like here's your data, here's the state's data, here's the national data. I'd have to look and see. I don't know if the client, if this particular, do you know if this,
It's a national company, so I don't know if they give us our information back.
Yeah.
I have to look.
Yeah, we can look. That's a great question. I'm not sure. It wasn't in the, 100 pages of data that they gave us, but that would be very interesting. Some surveys do it and some don't. I was really interested in our particular growth from one year to the next. I really wanted to see, are we on a positive trajectory? But it would be curious to see how we compare to other locations. So we'll look and see.
Any other questions? I'm looking forward to seeing the school-specific data because I know they're not all the same. So thank you for including that in the presentations moving forward.
Yeah. Okay. Part 3. Anybody need to stand up and stretch? I told you this is going to be long. I'm so sorry. All right. So this is my 60-day review. I'm going to take a minute to go back to my 30-day review that I did in August. And then I'll take us from there and some of the things that I've done with my team for the 60 days and then what it's going to look like into the 90 days. So the objectives here, I want to review the 30 days that I presented, share the 60 days, identify next steps, and then I'm going to lean this is going to go straight into my goals. So I'm not going to stop in between these two presentations unless you need me to. Because a lot of the work that I'm doing now aligns with the goals that I've set up. So I'm just going to zoom right in there. And then, of course, I absolutely 100% welcome feedback. So that would be really great. So from the 30-day plan, the key takeaways and themes, we found from our staff, looking for a path forward to rigorous instruction. They wanted to be stronger together. They were really looking for unity. Parents wanted more communication, consistency. They wanted us to be responsive to students' needs. And with our community, they were highlighting the positives of the school districts of Oxford, and they talked about how Oxford continues to be a magnet for families moving to Oxford as well as school of choice. People want to come to Oxford for the resources and support that we provide students. And students, they want to be safe, they want to have hope for their future, receive support, and experience joy in school. So those are some of the key takeaways from the 30-day. Some of the themes, resilience and grit. We want to figure out how we're going to reconstruct and move forward as one. What do resources continue to look like? What additional resources do we need? Reputation for excellence, revitalize through strategic planning, and reconnect through a robust communication plan. So these are themes from the 30 days. 60 days, we're really looking to find collaborative solutions, and one of the pieces we're really working hard towards is strategic planning starting in January. So my 90 days ends in December, and that'll launch us into strategic planning in January. So strategic planning is a process by which a school district evaluates current realities, identifies goals for the future, and creates a roadmap for the actions of all school community members to accomplish these goals. So where we are now, where we want to be, and how we're going to get there, essentially. So what that looks like, you have our current reality, current state. That's what we're doing right now. We're kind of fleshing that out. Step one, in January, we would begin the strategic planning process, get some continuous feedback throughout that time period, hopefully towards the end of the school year, finalize and present strategic plan, and then make sure we have strategic goals, aligned actions. So that's the vision. That's the vision. All right, so things we're doing right now, working with district leadership, we're reviewing current strategic initiatives and priorities, the work that we're doing, evaluating that work, especially for its impact, how it's going. We are aligning systems, processes, and procedures with a long-term vision. What are we doing now? How can we strengthen it? How can we improve it for the future? And looking at revised budget, and how do we align this with our educational goals? So the business team, John and the business team are working diligently to envision what that's going to look like. And then establish the roadmap for strategic planning around recovery and growth. So the strategic plan will become the roadmap. So we won't have a separate recovery plan and a strategic plan. They will come together for an all-encompassing strategic plan. Resource allocation. So currently we're analyzing our resource allocation, safety, mental health, wellness, curriculum, technology. Prioritizing high needs area based on academic data. Identify programming strength and challenges and possible modifications. Exploring possible options for future implementation. So it's a lot of exploration as to what we're doing, what evidence do we have that it's going well, what's any indication that needs to change what we're doing so that we can bring that to bear during the strategic planning process. Professional development, we've been leaning heavily into professional development. We have a very, very robust professional development program. Some of the things that we've been leaning into heavily, trauma-informed practices and support strategies such as STAR training, restorative training, Trails to Wellness, Bounce Back, CBITS. These are all about trauma-informed practices and how to support students experiencing trauma as well as adults. Specialized training, a lot of these have to do with safety. Obviously, safety is very important. Prepare 1 and 2, behavioral threat assessment and management, the BTM, CPI and behavioral support, Title IX training. We also administratively looking at teacher evaluation, inter-rater reliability, quality feedback, lots and lots of professional development to support both staff and students. And then finally, looking at gaps. So when you look at our data, our most recent academic data, there is a large gap in our EL scores. We are not supporting them as well as we can. And so some of the things we're really looking at leveraging is CEOPS training that has to do with how do we make sure that our EL students are learning alongside of general ed students and enabled to pick up the language while they learn as opposed to separately. So that's really, there's all different types of strategies to be able to do that in the general ed setting. And then UDL training, which is Universal Design for Learning. That's a type of teaching practice where you're essentially differentiating learning for the variety of levels that you have in your class, the variety of learning. And then of course, inclusion for all students. Collaborative partnerships, this has been really fun for me, getting to know all sorts of people in the community and working with them relatively closely, especially when there are situations going on with our students, our families, our staff. This has been really powerful to have these connections. I started this at the beginning of the summer in June when I got here. I've been able to work with the Chamber of Commerce, Parks and Rec, the DEA, those are local organizations. Nonprofits, I've worked closely with All for Oxford, North Oakland Community Coalition, that's Tanya Hamilton, who spells her name correctly, and I appreciate that. Easter Seals, Youth Assisted, Better Life Counseling. I've had a chance to meet with all of these individuals, and it's amazing the work that they're doing for our students. So really great work. This probably has been the most powerful piece for me, is having a chance to get to know our local community leaders. Chief of Police, Chief Sowell, and Fire Chief Majestic. That is so wonderful for them. When something happens, they call me directly and say, hey, this happened, I wanted you to be aware. And sometimes Shane is my next call, or Anita's my next call. So they're boots on the ground and are able to inform me what's happening specifically. That is invaluable. When we had a situation with some middle school students, I was able to talk to Chief Sewald directly, and he told me exactly what the investigation was going, how we might need to support the students. It was really a powerful opportunity for me to be in the know so that our students, our families could be supported. So that has been amazing. And not to mention the Sheriff's Office has been phenomenal. I've had a chance to meet with Lieutenant Patterson, and then as well as his team, Sergeants Meza, Rafalski, and Barnes. Just incredible and incredibly supportive. And seeing them interact with students is just a sight to behold. They are truly kid-friendly, which is amazing. And so using all of these relationships, the key is relationships, right? That's the most important thing that's been developing over time, are these relationships that I have been comfortable going to them, they're comfortable coming to me. That's how we're able to gain the information we need to be able to support students. Finally, continuous feedback loop. These were 10 of the top key findings, current perceptions. We got this from the climate survey. We got it from the leadership profile, qualitative data over the summer. So these are some things that our families, our community members, our staff are saying that we are paying close attention to. So areas such as stakeholders are not made aware about how their feedback is valued and considered. Communication between central office and the buildings could use improvement. We've been working hard at that. Viewpoints, frequency of district communication regarding safety incidents. We've been working with our parent and safety advisory board, and they have been phenomenal at helping us tailor those to make sure we're getting out communication efficiently, effectively, and that our message is able to resonate and parents have the information they need to make important decisions for their children. So we can continue to have need for a compassionate, trauma-informed communication, so we are definitely working towards that. Transparent communication. You know, as I mentioned before, I know it's hard to believe, but I'm not perfect. I will make mistakes, and it's really important just to say, hey, I wish this would have gone better. Here's what I'm going to do differently next time, right? It's important to communicate those things, and I've had to say that several times because I am a learning leader as well, and so it's really important to be transparent about those moments. Some students are not, they don't feel they're made aware of events or opportunities available to them, and we actually had a staff member bring that to our attention, that they were not aware of something that was happening at the high school that they felt they really wanted to be informed about. So we're really figuring out how do we make sure we communicate effectively. We gotta be careful, because if you're constantly inundated with information and messaging, you end up tuning it out. And so we do have to be mindful of different formats and frequency and those types of things. So those are some of the concepts that we're trying to wrap our minds around, and how do we make sure we address this in our communication plan. So from these, we developed some, in our communication plan, we have key objectives based on this feedback. So one, we really want to foster collaborative and inclusive communication from central office to staff and students. We want to make sure we're being very vigilant about the information we're sharing and not being siloed in that information. Increase opportunities for two-way communication. We're really great at one-way communication. We're really great at putting information out there. The key is that we're able to have dialogue and information can flow back and forth. So finding ways in which we can do that is really important. So we're working towards that. Again, strengthening communication between, in this case, school board and district leadership. We want to have that connection. We want to make sure we have a good understanding of what our stakeholders are thinking and what they're wanting across the board so that we can make sure we're tailoring our work to meet those needs, as well as we know our website. We are definitely working towards a fresh look, a more user-friendly website. So those are our objectives for our communication plan that we're continue to work on. So the next steps in the 90 days will get us to December. Implementation of strategic planning initiative and leveraging relationships. So this is where we're going to start getting our steering committee together. We have a whole list of stakeholders. We're going to start asking to participate, right? And so we'll be reaching out to groups of constituents to get their involvement and get their thumbs up that yes, they're willing to be a part of the strategic planning process. Looking lots of data. Celebrating successes, as we can see in our survey. Again, it's not huge. We're not at 100%. Some of those are not down to 0% where we want them to be, but we are improving, and we do need to celebrate those things, even if they're teeny-weeny. Long-term planning, what do we want Oxford to look like in 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, right? Really important to have that long-term vision. And then getting lots and lots of feedback from our community at a variety of events and what they might look like. I know in the leadership profile, they talked about wanting town hall meetings. So we can certainly look at doing some of those. We can do open office hours. We can do all sorts of stuff. I think it's really important to get as much feedback as possible. So that's the 90-day plan. And this goes into my goals and the work that I've been doing with my team, I've been doing with the community. The first goal, and this is all three of them are on the handout, so if you have the handout. The first one has to do with implementing procedures and protocols to improve school board and improve superintendent and board of education communication and deeper understanding of issues that come to the board as measured by at least 5 evidentiary protocols and procedures. And this is something we've been working collaboratively together to strengthen and some things that we've put in place already. You can see 30 days, we've put in many of these things having to do with communication and just make sure we are on the same page and that I'm being responsive to questions, being responsive to community needs, and continuing this into the 60 days, ongoing communication with individual board members, and specifically making sure that I'm following up on community questions and concerns. And my whole team is it's not just me, right? I am one person. I have a team of amazing individuals who are very knowledgeable and are very responsive when we get questions. Definitely having a good time. I'm one of those nerds that just loves committee work, so policy and finance and governance. So doing all of that work as well as the work with our parents, that's really fun. And then as we continue on into the 90 days, I'm really looking to get lots of feedback, specifically on the goals right now. And when we finalize the communication plan, getting as much feedback as possible. And then especially getting our school website where it needs to be so people can find the information they need quickly. We know that is a barrier right now. Right here, this is the MASB evaluation, superintendent evaluation instrument. So if you click on that, that's what we were trained on over the summer. And so if you click on that, that comes up, and then these particular areas as well as the goal align with governance and board relations, A3 and A6 under relations, board relations, and community relations focus on standard B1. So I wanted to put that together so make it nice and easy to make those connections. So that's the first goal. Second goal, by June 2025, collaborate with key stakeholders in a strategic planning process resulting in a comprehensive strategic plan that addresses the district's immediate needs and builds a sustainable path towards long-term improvement and success. This is what we're leaning into now. We're going into January where it'll liven up. We'll do a lot of work January through April with a goal of being done with the process in May and presenting it in June for approval. So this is some work that's been going on, lots and lots of work, needs assessments, relationships. That's been a lot of my 30 days, been out there hitting the pavement, meeting people. 60 days, continue to building a relationship, evaluating data, and getting a steering committee together for our strategic planning. And then right now, the team next Tuesday, we're going to be reviewing, looking at our recovery plan, looking at our previous strategic plan, which was established in 20 and 21. This is linked, so you can pull it up and see it. And then identify alignment with our current realities and initiatives, and identify a systematic approach to bring all stakeholders together to provide insights. With the MASB evaluation tool, the governance and board relations, the focus is on standard A2, business and finance, standards D1 and D4. And then finally, goal 3, by June 2025, develop and implement non-evaluative leadership and learning walks that focus on goals for learning and align instruction as measured by a schedule of occurrences and leadership participation. So the key here is having an instructional focus. We have to focus on instruction, right? Our data reflects that our instruction has not been as rigorous or robust as it's been historically, and the numbers show that, and we really have to figure out what that looks like. We want to continue to be trauma informed. We want to continue to enhance our SEL supports and provide rigorous instruction. This is critical. We've got to figure this out for the benefit of our students. So some of the things we've already started doing, informal meetings with families and community members as well as staff, reviewing achievement data. Attendance is a critical component. Our attendance has dropped significantly. We used to be one of the top schools in Oakland County as far as attendance goes, and now we're one of the lowest as far as attendance. So definitely something to think about. And then 60 days, what are some collaborative solutions to improve attendance? We have a lot of really great ideas, and we've already implemented several things, especially at the high school, that has had a positive impact. It's amazing what kids will do if they're told if your attendance is a certain percentage, you won't have to take the final exams. Okay, say less, right? So very excited. Initiate leadership learning walks to gain insight in how to structure this for leadership. And then in our 90 days, some collaborative work with school leadership to develop a sustainable monthly learning walk, protocol to strengthen instructional leadership and peer-to-peer feedback. This falls under staff relations, C1, C2, and C7, and instructional leadership, standards E5 and E6. Whew. Okay. I did warn you. All right, feedback on the goals. You're dumbfounded.
Looking around to my board mates first. Mike, I see you jumping to the mic.
First off, I want to just show my appreciation for you continuing to deal with all the day-to-day that I know you deal with, but still looking forward and making sure we're trending upward and doing and planning for the future of Oxford. So I appreciate that. I did, when we were talking about, let's see, sorry. You might have to come back to me now. For some reason, my comment on that one, I don't know. You can come back to me, but I'll do it.
Anybody else? Well, Mike, fine. Coming.
Like Mike, I want to thank you for, this is a big, giant presentation, and it's a lot. and I know you're learning on the job and drinking from a fire hose and all the other things. But I really appreciate the fact that we're going to work hard on not only attendance, because you can't really learn if you're not in school, and academics. So thanks for that.
Also want to thank you. I think that your goals were very specific and you really were able to target our needs. And so I just really want to echo the sentiment that I appreciate what you have done. I really appreciate the communication changes that you've made between the board, between administration. It has been much needed and much appreciated. I love that you embrace the feedback loop and are continuously looking for ways to make everything about Oxford better. So, thank you.
Did you find your notes?
I know, shocking, right? It just speaks to her great communication. Well, I don't have a mile-long page of questions this evening.
It was a lot. I appreciate your patience, I really do.
Yeah, I'll get it.
Okay. All right, Tanya, thank you so much.
Thank you, appreciate
Great
that.
presentation.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 6 in the agenda. The first item is a review for a field trip request for the OHS boys basketball. Okay, Tanya, let me talk again.
Right, so this is our boys basketball team. They have a wonderful opportunity to go on a retreat. It's a colleague of the boys basketball coach who has a retreat house that actually has multiple basketball courts that the students can play on. So it's a team building opportunity, and the next day, after having that opportunity to play together and have a lot of fun, they're going to play against a team, a Mayo team. I don't know what that is, but it's Mayo. So that's November 14th and 15th.
We'll vote on this at the next meeting, so do you guys have any questions for Tanya to take back, or I see Shane's in the audience too? All right, great. All right, item B is the policy committee update. These are second readings, and we have one movement that we have to pull. Maybe you want to talk to us?
Yep, absolutely. So we are actually going to pull off 3105.01, and we're going to move that into first reading. We had it on first reading, but there was an error in the policy as it was written. So that has been fixed. It's in your book, the correct version. So we're just going to simply move it to first reading this evening, and we won't approve tonight. It was that one, just to remind you all about the sex offender visiting schools, and it is shall impose additional conditions, not may. So that was corrected, and we're moving that. And then as far as your other policies, we had gone over already in the last meeting for first reading. Your student expression was the one that we had changed. The rest were based on TRUM recommendations. So unless we have any questions,
Do we
those.
Do you want to read the motion then, or do you want?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're just removing the first
Yep.
one, right? Okay.
So move to adopt board policies 5101.01, 5102, 5103.01, 5213. Hold on, I'm just confirming that I have the right ones. Yep, 5301.01, 5416, 5503, 5707, and 5806 as presented.
Great. Do I have support? Ann? Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Would someone like to read the second motion for first reading, adding 3105.01 to the motion that's there? James?
Move to approve the first reading of board policies 3105.01, 5208, 5305.01, 5306, 5509, 5701, 5804 as presented.
Do I have support? Colleen?
Support.
Any other discussion? This is just first reading for this, so we'll come back next meeting with these as well. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, item C is our Finance Committee update, which also is item 7 on the agenda. One of the things the Finance Committee discussed this last time was a repeat from the last board meeting on the MyLab strategy. So I'm going to go ahead and have John present that as he did to the Finance Committee, and then we'll provide some other updates that we discussed in that meeting as well. So John, take it away.
Good evening. I guess we start with PowerPoint. I'll go and update some of from the subcommittee meeting. So just kind of a follow-up in addition to last meeting's discussion on our current banking model and bringing in MyLab into the picture. So from my perspective, the model banking strategy is one that's going to do a couple of these big picture things. One is minimize operational risk. And you started with the school code investments. We follow them in Trenton House. The banks follow them in terms of what they interact with us with, and so does MyLab. So that's like the first thing you're going to check off from the list of compliance point of view. The other thing from an operational risk point of view is assess and take a look at and account for any risk to the district. When I say risk, in this case, it's really about concentration risk. You have all your money in one location. And the types of risks there are cyber attack in this day and age. You just never know when these kinds of issues are going to lock down or restrict your access to your funds, which could cause problems with payroll, things of that nature, and or just the good old-fashioned economic risks, such as in 2010, that whole mess and caused a lot of banking problems. So the idea here is to get your money in more than one spot. So if something happens at one site, you'll have access to some more of your other funds at another site to keep your payroll and AP and all the processing going. The other thing you want to look at is how, after you've got that safety piece locked down, how can we maximize our revenue generation from different deployment into different types of investments. So from that perspective, that's really where the new proposed model of MyLab will come in. So kind of one of the things that we want to do from a benchmark point of view, moving to that kind of a model where the current model we use one banking organization, the proposed model we use at least two. So from comparing current to proposed, from a fee point of view, they're both good on fees. There's no fees associated in terms of our relationship and our current structure. And really the proposed model still utilizes our current banking organization in conjunction with MyLab. Neither of those organizations would have a fee structure tied to us. So in terms of the fees, any costs and or savings that are going to go on, we'll experience both of those with both organizations. In the current model as well as the proposed model, we're experiencing those. From a concentration of risk, can you mitigate it, minimize it? Current model, not so much. The new approach, that's kind of one of the drivers of the new approach, is to help mitigate that concentration of assets of the risk associated being tied down in an organization. And then, is there an opportunity to generate additional revenue? Current model, under the current structure, it's a soft no. There's things that we can do to improve that somewhat, but relative to the proposed model structure, we would do both. We would work with current organizations to see what we can improve there, and then using the new proposed MyLab structure, improve any revenue generation there. Sorry. So, and the conversation came up at last meeting too, so what does that really look like when it comes to just from typical funding, when would you have money to invest? What does those dollar amounts look like and potential returns? So this slide is kind of representative of our debt funds. So this is actually the 23-24 net cash fund balance by a monthly basis for our debt funds from last fiscal year. So in July, there's really net zero. When we levy our first wave of taxes, they're levied in July. We really don't see any taxes coming until August. And as you can see, it builds from August, September into October. So our peak balances are coming in at that point. In terms of an investment opportunity each month, there's an opportunity to move chunks of the new money coming in into the shorter term cash class at MyLab. And as you get to closing out of October, you can pull some back to meet your debt service demands, and that's what's really showing up in the drop in November. That's our first wave of debt payments. We make debt payments in November and in May. So once you've reached the time frame from November through April, the funding you have in your bank is an opportunity to do a longer term, higher yielding yet safe investment with those funds. So that's what the red line represents. We would look at this coming year's version of this scenario, identify what is referred to as available investable funds. So in this model, we would project about $5.5 million opportunities to invest in a 6-month period with a higher rate, because if you invest longer, you get a higher return. It's not, it's just like any kind of other investment. So with the overall model there being that we pick up additional investment capacity and revenue generation, we mitigate our concentration risk, and to be perfectly frank, when we generate more revenue, and particularly in the debt fund world, that means we borrow less from the school bond loan fund, which means cost ultimately to the taxpayer and our district, their costs are reduced because we're generating funding from a source that's not responsible to be paid back with property taxes. So that to me is a win-win in that whole process. So here's a quick snapshot, same concept but for the general fund. Now the bars representing each month's net cash balance go all over the board. The general fund's more complicated from a identification of net investable cash. Literally each month, if you just take a look at the month of March, there's just about, say, $7.7 million in the bank. That's at the snapshot time of end of March when bank statements come out. During the course of the month of March, it could have gone down to $2 million because we're using it to pay payroll, we're using it to pay accounts payable. So it's really a week-by-week, intra-month cash flow analysis to say how much can be deployed into a better investment, higher yielding investment, i.e. ILF. And that would probably be done on a weekly basis for the general fund world. So it's a little more active management. And once you identify your big ticket pieces going every month, which would be payroll, accounts payable, there's a couple other big payments that go on over the course of any given year. Once you get those well planned out, you can build a better investment model as you get better at that piece. So the yield will go up. Now we are in just as a footnote, we are what I would say reaching a declining interest rate environment. So the estimates that we used here, we're at a rate that's lower than they are currently at MyLab right now. So we're trying to get, that's why at the bottom there, we're doing a potential investment revenue projection of anywhere from 100 to 200,000. But really that'll depend on how short-term interest rates are handled by the Fed, how quickly they choose to reduce. Historically, outside of the last 10 years, historically, this kind of short-term money is roughly 3.5% yield. So I would expect that at some point in the year, the next 2 years, will probably slowly drift down to that. So in that range, we're still generating somewhere between 100 and 200,000 in revenue. This way it's got a range, not a specific dollar amount. To make a demonstration of what we think we can do in the new structure approach. So really, just a little quick snapshot in terms of trying to address some questions and clarify how that model itself would work. Let me see, what am I missing in my notes? So from that perspective, we do support, we do recommend, the administration recommends the board approves that resolution so we can move forward and start constructing that more diversified model. And I'd be more than happy to take any questions on that approach, and I believe that on the agenda there's the actual resolution, second reading piece on it. Any questions on that piece?
Any questions? Okay.
Just a point of clarification, I guess. I know we discussed it at the finance committee meeting about, so the fee-free, there's no threshold there. You investigated as far as the...
So in terms of the MyLab, there's no threshold. In terms of working with our current bank, right now there's no threshold because we do have a large amount. So as we figure out what's moving back and forth, some of that will be worked out with the bank. The amounts of funds that we would still maintain in the operational bank, I'm very confident that the fee negotiation perspective will be a very easy one for the bank and us to work with. I don't think there'll be any fee. We'll still have The goal is not to move all the money out of our current organization, it's about spreading it, as well as generating some additional revenues with it, and then still having some funding at that location, so from a concentration of risk perspective, it's available when needed.
Good. All right.
So you, with respect to the resume, let me just go ahead in terms of the feedback in terms of the finance committee piece.
Sure.
So there's, during the committee, we talked about this issue too, and a couple of new things came on the radar screen, so to speak. So from what's coming up, in terms of what we did discuss and the potential for the districts, we're going to be looking at contracting to do a district-wide facility assessment and evaluation process. Hopefully in the near future, we'll get that going. The goal of that is to get a solid snapshot in time of the current facilities district-wide condition. When I say condition, I mean how old are they, what kind of state of repair or disrepair they're in, what are the roofs looking like, how the HVAC system, so facility-wide and subsystems within facilities, site stuff, parking lots, those kinds of things, with the goal being to get a concentrated, consolidated report that identifies from the big picture, district-wide snapshot. This is where everything's at. And we'll use that data to plan forward when it comes to maintenance work, renovation work, prioritizing all those projects. It'll also be used as a great starting base to upload a facilities assessment management system. We have kinds of systems and ticket systems for maintenance, but we're also looking at a consolidated software piece that addresses and tracks facilities as well as any maintenance aspects needed, life of facilities, things along the lines that will help us know how to plan for our management, cost management in particular of the facilities in terms of maintenance of HVAC work, or when something's at end of life and we need to plan 2 years from now, we know to replace, say, a unit roof for this facility. Well, all right, 2 years we should be planning to replace it, so we'll have a longer time range to prepare for those. So that was discussed. Ideally, that'll be coming in the not-too-distant future in terms of moving forward with that kind of a process. And the second thing that kind of got on the radar screen is that our general operating millage, it's a tax levy, is what everybody probably knows is the 18 mills that's levied local property that feeds into the school general fund for operating taxes. That millage expires in December of 2026, so the point of the discussion was to get it on everybody's radar in terms of planning forward for that. And we kind of had a conversation about, well, what does that really mean practically? Because people hear about, well, you have property taxes coming into the schools and you get state aid. So from a perspective, just from a very simplistic point of view, and I was asked to re-replicate something that I did in reading, that this bottle represented the foundation allowance, which is the $9,600 we get for each student to pay for the general education, which is the bulk of funding. The state funds that $9,600, or the model, I should say, the state law funds it by the 18 mills that public schools levy on the qualifying properties. So let's say that fills the bottle halfway up, and then the state looks at every district and says, all right, you generated this much, we're going to fill the rest of it up with state aid, and we get that state aid 11 times a year. The one thing the state does is they assume that all districts are levying their full 18 mil. There are mechanisms in the state's tax code that cause or limit or reduce outright the ability for taxing authorities like schools, even townships and counties, that come in play every year, analysis done, and over time it pushes these authorized rates down. So in our case, over time, because we're at the back end of this operating millage, we're not actually levying the full 18 mills because of what this tax law puts in place. So from the perspective of filling that full 9.6 million, we're falling short about 150,000 because of the change in the tax levy ability over the course of time. So that's why there's two ways that kind of the conversation went. One, the current one is actually expiring. So at a minimum, we've got to prepare to renew it. And you also have an opportunity to go to the public for ask for We're renewing it sooner, which comes with a different label, they call it replacement. So that whole radar screen's out there, and we'll be talking more about that as we get forward here in closing in on that time frame, just to prepare to go to the public, ask for renewals of that millage, and keep things going. And kind of the biggest difference between the general operating tax and, say, you want to ask for a bond or a sinking fund, the general operating mill is the 18 mills. Every community, every school district, the entities that pay that are what's known as the non-homestead tax base, and that's the easiest way to describe it is it's your business tax base. So the businesses actually pay that tax. It's built in the tax code so that everybody votes on it. So when my community comes around to vote on that, and I'm living in my house, the houses, you don't pay the tax. Private homes, they don't pay the 18 mills, but I get to vote and tell the businesses to pay it. So that's kind of a paradox in the way the whole tax thing comes up. And that's part of the communication challenge when this millage for every district goes out and asks this community to renew it. So that'll be coming too, how to tackle that challenge. Any questions, any thoughts in terms of maybe I missed or misconstrued from our meeting conversation?
No, what I would say, just the key takeaways is when we do need to take this forward for an election, it's best to tie it to an existing election versus calling our own election. So we'll have to watch the timing of what other types of elections will occur between now and 2026. The idea would be to do it prior to it expiring, so that way we don't have any gaps. The current levy is 18 mills, and as John alluded to, we're receiving less than that right now because of tax code changes. And one of the interesting things John shared with us is Oxford is unique in the sense that we operate in 2 counties. And so that feeds the formula. Oakland and Lapeer counties may do it differently, and then therefore that could contribute to us getting under it. So when we do go to do the next proposition for vote, we would want to ask for 20 to 22 mills, because at the end of the day, we can't do more than 18. So if we have 20 to 22 and that formula falls and it changes it, instead of, I think we're at like 17.9 or 8 or something around there right now, we will never fall under that 18, and that $150,000 we're potentially losing right now is a lot of things. You could go through a budget and say, what does this equal? It equals 2 teachers or a teacher and a parapro. So we want to make sure that we're really conscious about how we do this from a strategy standpoint, and then also just highlighting the fact that this is the business tax. This is not our personal home taxes. Nothing will raise. Our property taxes will not go up over it. So I think those are kind of the key takeaways, but to put it on our radar that this is something that we'll continue to need to discuss.
And a couple other things in terms of I get that from the resolution piece itself from my life. It's actually a board agenda issue, so I wouldn't really speak more to it, but just a quick reminder in terms of, in my life is a K-12 established by school districts, managed by school districts, so from a safety point of view, I have ultimate faith in them. There is a competitor statewide that's probably 90% the same as a MyLab, but I would still choose MyLab. To be honest with you, from my past history, I am biased towards MyLab, but this is also on the agenda. And also is the summer tax resolution. I'm sure I'm jumping ahead on you, I apologize for that. But the summer tax piece itself is a compliance issue every year. If you're levying 100% summer tax, it's really a compliance meeting. So we go through that process, and the board goes through the process of approving the resolution.
All right.
That's all I got. Got any more questions? I'd be happy to field them.
Any questions from the rest of the board?
Nope.
Just some other things we talked about was we finalized the OVA white box piece, so that is done.
That was
Yep.
we're completely out of it.
We're done.
We're done with the strip mall on Lapeer Road. We're walking away from it, and we negotiated that they remodel it, not us, which was great because that reduced our costs, I think, overall with the way construction seems to be going. With the facilities update, just leaning into kind of what John talked about, once we have the evaluation done, we'll have to RFP it, of course, because there's a couple different ways. We asked how much it could cost. We're thinking maybe around $40,000, but that will lean into better budget planning in the future. So that way, as these things come up, especially as we've looked at how we've used our capital dollars over the last couple of years, we want to make sure that we're really good stewards of that moving forward, and whether or not there, again, we'll have to talk about other millages or bonds if that were to ever come into fruition. And then, what else, Mike? Oh, the audit will be in the next meeting. There were 2 findings that John shared with us, but the audit team will go over that in detail next meeting on the 10/29. I think that's just a transition of, we transitioned softwares and staff in that department, and these were the things that were caught during the audit due to that. And so there's a plan for it, and that will be at the next meeting. Did I miss anything, Mike? Right? All right. All right. If I could get someone to read the MyLab resolution.
I'd like to do that.
Mike?
Move to approve the MyLab Fund resolution as presented.
And do I have support? James? Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Also in the packet was a summer tax resolution, first reading. Can I get someone to read that? Colleen?
Move to approve the first reading of the summer tax resolution as presented.
And support? James? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, John. All right, item 8 on the agenda is just the readings for the school of choice. It was reviewed at the last meeting. Do I have someone who would like to read that? It's lengthy. Amanda?
Yeah. Move to approve the 2024-2025 school year second semester dates, kindergarten through 5th, unlimited seated. School of choice enrollment will open November 12th, 2024, and close November 26th, 2024 for seated. OMS 6th through 8th and OHS 9th unlimited seated. Schools of choice enrollment will open January 6th, 2025, and close January 20th, 2025 for seated. Oxford Virtual Academy K through 11th virtual school of choice enrollment will be open January 6th, 2025, and close January 20th, 2025 for virtual.
Can I get a support? Mike Whitney? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 9, unscheduled public comment. Kelly? None? All right. Item 10 is closed session. Do I have someone to read the motion? Colleen?
Move to meet in closed session pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, Section 8(1)B, to consider the expulsion, suspension, or disciplining of a student pursuant to MCL 15.2681B.
And then do I have support? Amanda? And then roll call vote, James.
McDonough?
Yes.
Schultz?
Yes.
Whitney?
Yes.
Summers? Yes. Atchison?
Yes.
Alder?
Yes.
Reese?
Yes. It is 8:03, we'll be entering closed session. I got money.
You have 3 minutes.
Go. I tell you guys something. Aaron, you don't.
Tell us about ourselves. Thank you.
Yeah, but I took the buzzer, so.
Are you good?
Yep.
All right, 8:57 PM, returning from closed session. We do have one motion to vote on. I will go ahead and read the motion, and then we'll ask for support. So a motion to vote to uphold the recommended discipline that was reviewed in closed session. Do I have support? Mike A. And then roll call vote, James. Roll call vote.
Apologize, I was grabbing my list here. Thank you. Schultz?
Yes.
Whitney?
Yes.
Atchison?
Yes.
Alder?
Yes.
McDonough?
Yes.
Summers? Yes. Reese?
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 13 on the agenda is final board comments. Do I have any from the group? Great. 14, adjournment. It is 8:59 PM and we are adjourned.